All right.
All right.
So now we can
Yeah.
talk about how we met.
How we met. Yeah.
BBAU.
Yeah.
I joined.
Yeah.
You had, I think it had moved to North Washington Street. You've been there a year or something like
Yeah,
that?
from the big gallery in Government Center. Where, had you ever been to the Government Center?
Never,
No.
never went to that one. But
Yeah.
I joined, and immediately there was a members show. I think that was the inducement for me to join.
Yeah.
It was one of those fall, anybody can put something in.
Yeah.
And I think I put in a large watercolor of a bunch of test dummies. It's done from a Volkswagen photograph.
Okay.
And that has to be when we met.
Yeah.
And love at first sight, you know. Plus you were very nice to me. I had no idea what was going on, and you knew everything.
And I still do.
No
People
doubt.
just flock to me.
Some do.
Except this time it's a documentary film.
Well, that's a cool world. And then I think the next big thing, and I started going to the openings.
Yeah.
And,
Do you remember Renee?
Of
Renee?
course.
Yeah, Renee and I shared a desk
Right.
right at the door.
I remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I started hanging out and going to the openings and putting work in shows. I think I
Yeah.
got into a still life show. And then you and I curated a show together. This would be, I'm going to say, 1980, 81, The Male Figure.
Okay. Oh, yes.
And actually, it was a wonderful show.
It was a wonderful show.
Right. Even Mike Mazer said it was a wonderful
Yes,
show. You know?
I remember that.
And we had some
It
really...
was an interesting.
We had some
And
great
yours.
stuff. Yeah, I wasn't in the show, though.
No, but I mean personally.
Yeah, yeah.
We both were interested in
Yeah,
it.
I was very interested. I thought, that's the kind of painter I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I was determined to paint men well through Scott Emick.
Yeah.
And it only changed for me when I got bored with it and decided I really was more interested in color and form and stuff. And that's when I just thought, anyway, we did that show together, and that was a big thing. And then the other big thing we did was the self-study. I forgot what we called it, but it was the beginning of the end of the BBAU, I'm
Oh,
afraid.
yes, yeah.
I
We
was struck-
wrote a grant. Do you remember my lawyer friend, Frank Chasen?
Yes, of course.
Little Frank.
Yeah,
He looks
right,
like Toulouse
right.
Lautrec.
He was one of those guys who hung out because of the chicks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And he donated a lot of his legal expertise for free. He was actually my divorce lawyer. And old.
Whatever happened to him?
He's still in, he got married.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, good. I'm glad for him.
yeah.
I called, invited him to the party.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
And what?
Well, obviously he didn't show up.
Easy, because there were a lot of people like Shirley who had high ownership feelings about the BBA.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're not going to let anybody come in and run it for them.
Who was it? I forget who. What was I doing?
Not Todd. He had a funny name. And he was only hired half-time. Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, according to Renee, he was a complete disaster.
Yeah.
He knew nothing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I do remember him.
Big Beard.
Yeah,
Big
Beard. I remember
Big
him
Beard,
now.
but,
Yeah.
And
He sold a good. He had a good song and dance routine, but no,
you were
no
still
delivery.
involved.
Yeah.
But
It was peripheral.
everything was slipping.
Yeah.
The BBAU newsletter early on was the major communication tool
Right.
in the Boston art
Yeah.
community. Art New England got founded.
Yeah.
What year would that have been?
Oh.
Early. It was '83,
Maybe before.
'82.
Even before that.
Yeah.
What? You remember when it moved to AIB?
Oh God, I was almost out of it.
You were almost out of it, but you were over at AIB for a while.
Yeah. I was at AIB from '80 to '87.
That long.
I was
Wow.
I was the dean of admissions there.
Oh wow. Well, it was still owned by what was the name of the family?
Willis family.
It was not.
Tuck and Sissy Willis.
Tuck was the name of the guy at the BBAU,
So it's a different Tuck.
but it just came into my head.
Yeah, okay.
Well, eventually they became a 501c3 non-for-profit educational corporation,
Okay.
and I think Stan Trecker became director.
Oh, yes.
And And 10 years ago, again, one of those gigs, for a semester, I taught a painting class, and I've been teaching there ever since.
At ARB?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And it's gone through some big changes. It's now part of Roosevelt University.
Yeah, I knew that.
It's
Yeah.
a whole other story. But, so a lot of things happened around that time. I joined Gallery Naga, and
Yeah.
I basically backed out of the whole BBAU thing. I didn't have, there was nothing there for me to do.
Right.
And I was going to the museum school, and I had my first show at 82 at the Mills Gallery, which was a big deal for me, and moved in here. Thought I'd be here for a year, and 25 years later, I'm still here.
And happy.
Well, yeah, I'm reasonably okay.
Yeah.
I survived the big deal here in '95.
What was that?
Well, the owner of the building is Simeon Bruner. You know who he is? He's a big deal Cambridge architect.
Mm-hmm.
And this was his first big deal. The
Mhm.
conversion of this building in '73 to living and workspace for visual and performing arts.
Yeah.
Blue color.
Yeah.
'Cause
And no one had been allowed to buy. It had.
No, it was all
had been-
rental, and it was all going to be
just at
locked
that
in forever.
20 Yeah.
And, it was the only game in town in terms of that kind of housing, number one.
Right, and those
num-
kind of prices
And
and all
number
that.
two,
Yeah.
it was the only building the only place in the whole city of Boston that actually could claim to have a
Real
really
art.
serious, well, that, and a really seriously ethnically, racially, sexually integrated building.
Yeah,
It was probably the most integrated place in the entire city.
yeah,
Because of that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Here I am, 2 days before Christmas,
Oh,
as we picket outside the
yeah.
building
Oh,
in a candlelight
dire.
watch in the
The
snow.
dire. Oh, God.
Look at that. Do I look happy? Do I look happy?
Oh,
Do I
my
look happy?
No, you don't. You don't look happy.
Oh, my God.
And
Dire.
it was a very big, horrible deal. I mean, it was like living in Boston. I mean, pounding on the door, being served notices by officers of the court for evictions.
Oh, Jesus.
Constant, you better sign your new lease or you're going to be gone in 30 days, with triple the rent and all this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So the tenants organization, which is a pretty moribund affair, there was a lot of crazy talk about what to do, and there was a lot of crazy stuff, but we basically got Boston Legal Services to get interested in the project, and we hired Harvey Shapiro, who is Boston's most tenacious.
You know Harvey? Yeah.
He is
By reputation.
Mr.
Yeah.
Tenant Law.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, the phrase was, he got people on Hemingway Street leases till the end of their lives, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And he did it for a pro bono rate, which meant $200 an hour.
Oh, jeez.
I know. So fundraising, I mean, there was a lot of that. But we had Harvey and we had the Boston Legal Services people on our side. And to make a long story short, there was a 3-year legal battle in housing court over the legality of the evictions and how he'd done it. And we basically won. He had been badly advised, and
cool.
he handled it very badly.
Yeah, to say the least. as
And
far
the
as
BRA
public
got
relations.
involved and St. Paul got
Yeah.
involved, and after about 3 years of nobody knowing what the hell was going on and whether you'd have to leave in a week, an agreement was formulated and the agreement was signed. And the agreement had 3 options. The first option was, at the time of the signing of the agreement, you could take a $10,000 one-time buyout, but you had to be out of the building within 30 days. That was the first option. And a lot of people took that option if they had money to be able to buy something else.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
a kind of
It
a
was-
didn't touch it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we were picketing his architectural offices daily in Cambridge, honk for fair rent, the whole nine.
Yeah, yeah.
And picketing his house and harassing him and going to, I mean, it was very personal. It was all very personal.
Yeah, yeah.
I did some of that, but politics is a dirty business.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't like it. I didn't like being involved in it. I sort of stayed at the back of the room a lot of the time, all that part of it. But the agreement was one-time buyout, option 1. Option 2, you could stay in the building till 2014 under the current strictures, which were 35% of your rent to be adjudicated annually. That you would pay 35% your income would be equal to 35, I'm sorry, your rent would be equal to 35% of your annual income, and the rest would be covered by Section 8 subsidies. And you could stay till 2014, but you would be subject to being moved internally in the building to a unit that could be no smaller than 2/3 of your current unit.
Oh, it doesn't sound like
A lot of
really
people,
great
a lot of,
deal.
a lot of people took that deal. I took the third option, which was you could stay in your current unit at 35% of your rent would be equal to 35% of your current income adjudicated annually till 2005. So technically,
Which is like now.
I was going to be evicted as of December 31st. But in the meantime, Simeon Bruner, who was a Republican apparently, very well connected in Washington,
Doesn't surprise
got
me.
enhanced Section 8 vouchers. Bottom line is, he's getting, at the end of the day, whatever I'm paying is one thing. I'm paying a percentage of my income. But he is getting, in terms of subsidy beyond that, the actual, what he claims is the market rate for this unit. So we have become...
And the taxpayers are paying.
Right. Well, no problem. I don't have, I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah,
The taxpayers are paying for everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
right, exactly.
Why not for artists?
Yeah,
I
okay,
get that.
yeah.
I actually get that from people all the time. You mean the tax money's going for that? They say,
Yeah.
what's wrong with that? We pay for everybody else.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah,
artists,
yeah,
be
that's true.
subsidized?
Yeah.
People don't want to, the idea that
But to
artists,
this guy, who,
in the end, he's the one making money.
Yeah, exactly,
I'm not
that's
making,
the thing.
I'm not making any
No,
money.
exactly, but that's the thing, that this fat cat has
Yeah.
got to get even
Well,
fatter.
One of the things we did that he found really obnoxious is
Yeah.
we had a Mylar silkscreen sign that said greed and with a big
Oh, I love it.
cross through it.
Yeah.
And we made up hundreds of them and we put them in every window along the front of the building.
Yeah, I love
He absolutely hated that. But, that's what it was. It was
Yeah,
greed. It was
yeah,
totally greed.
totally.
To cash. The rental housing market at this point, because that $1,600-1,700 a month includes all utilities. Heat,
Okay.
electricity, water, gas.
Yeah.
And there is a parking facility, which I don't take advantage of because I don't have a car, and the location means I don't have to own a car. So in a macroeconomic sense, for me, given my situation,
Personal situation.
if push came to shove, I probably wouldn't move.
I mean, and then there's the expense
of moving.
Of moving.
Well, moving people look at this place and they say, Ken, you cannot move.
You can't.
You'd have to simply get rid of it all. You can't move this.
Packing all this up.
Oh, please, forget it.
God.
The thought of it, I can't sleep at night. I can't sleep at night.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Well, we live way on the other end of Cambridge, near Belmont, Watertown. And it took two buses, and it was fairly quick to get here.
Right. I know
So
that.
transportation is very good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is a transportation hub. I mean,
Yeah.
The subway is right there.
Right.
It's very easy. So that's the story of me and the piano factory. The community has really changed. It was a very stable community I moved in 81, and this happened in 95, so I would say 15 years. Very stable. When people left here, they didn't move to another place in the city. They moved to California or to New York. Now there are only about 40 households in the tenant agreement that are still here. As those folks leave, of course, the units become just rental. And the rest of the units, let's say 130 units, are either young professionals who are moving here from somewhere else, and this is a good place to land in Boston. They stay a year or two, and then they move out.
But they're not necessarily artists.
Not necessarily artists.
There's no more artist requirement to
They
live
market
there.
the building that way. They have photographs of my 60th birthday show on their website as one of the teasers for making the building look.
Hold on just a minute. You aren't 60 years old.
I'm 62.
You're only like late 40s, maybe
I'm
most.
62.
It's right? Am I right, Cynthia? Late,
Ken is late 40s.
late 40s at the most. Okay.
They market it as an artist
Yeah.
building, and but it's mostly I'd say 30% of the other tenants, other than the association people, are young professionals, and the other 60 to 70% are workers and students.
Oh, jeez.
So and they're kids.
Yeah.
So I've got a fraternity house with me across the hall here.
Oh,
Brian and Gary and Brian. You know? And you know, you have to deal with them, and I
Yeah.
do. I'm on top of their case. I just don't. I try not to put up with it. On the other hand, I don't like being in a position of being a curmudgeon. You know?
Yeah.
But you know, so those kids are all in the real estate market in the neighborhood. And of course,
Yeah.
when kids are competing with adults for rental real estate, they win.
Yeah.
You know, 5 of them will fit into an apartment that, you know, housed a
One decent
one
adult.
or 2, you know, a couple.
Yeah.
And you know, they'll pay $800 a month, and they're each of them, and they're
Yeah.
all, you know, it's not much to live in the city, and the renter, landlord, is getting, you know, $4,000 a month for the unit. What's not to like, right? No competition, really.
Yeah.
So the building has changed, and the tenant association community is friendly and strong and very multiracial and with the ethic and all that. But we're all getting very old.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a sadness to it all.
Yeah.
But I can't see myself moving. And I can walk to Kenmore Square to teach, you know, and Utrecht's down the street. And it works for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I like the changes in the neighborhood. It hasn't completely become gentrified yet. I had a shot at one of those lofts at Laconia.
Where's that?
Down on Washington Street, North Washington.
Okay.
It was
That's where near where the BVA gallery is, North Washington.
I'm sorry, Washington Street, not North Washington.
Okay.
So before Berkeley Street.
Okay.
In the south end, which is the new hot area. And Laconia was the first building to go up there, brand new building, de novo, not a conversion or anything like that. And the guy was, what was his name? Jack. He was a smoke and mirrors real estate developer guy, and he made it happen. He did Brick Bottom over in Somerville first, and he did Harry the Greeks before that. And this was a big project. He nearly lived to see it completed. He had a sudden heart attack and died.
Well, too bad the good people are gone.
Well, he was something, and it was all smoke and mirrors, and the smoke was artists. Artists with a draw. This was going to be an artist loft building.
Okay.
And so some of the units were specially priced to attract artists.
Right.
We're talking about raw space.
Yeah.
New raw space.
Yep.
And I went to some early meetings and everything, and at a certain point I thought I had a backer, somebody who would put up the money, and that I could get one of these things. And it turned out that couldn't happen, so I backed out of it. And Jack McLaughlin, I guess his name was, called me and said, well, you know, this is an easy way to do this, Ken. You call 10 of your patrons, and you ask them to each give you $5,000.
Yeah. You've got it made.
You've got $50,000, and they each take a painting a year for the next 5 years. And I said, no way. You're not going to do that. You know, that's kiss of death with artists. I had a patron for a while. It's the beholding thing. They cream your work. You know, they walk off with the best pieces. They're never seen. They're never exhibited. You know, your prices never rise. You do feel like somebody in the back room. It's not a nice relationship. For a little while, okay, but it puts a twist on your work that's not, you know, it's like doing commissions. I've done a few commissions. I hate doing commissions.
Yeah.
You know, if there's an expectation about what the thing is supposed to look like that isn't there when you're just painting.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah,
So,
I've had that experience.
I mean, these are all possible, you know, it's ways that people get through.
Right, exactly.
Having a life as an artist. But, they all come with big, it's like full-time teaching.
Yeah.
That sucks too.
Yeah.
You know, teach and you don't paint.
Yeah.
You know, everybody I know is a full-time teacher. You know,
Yeah,
forget it.
Forget it.
I mean, they may churn out, you know, there's some people like David churns out work, but, you know, his work is thin. I mean, it's easy to do.
Yeah.
No, I've avoided all of that, and you know, I'm not complaining. My eyes are wide open about the consequences of it. But, you know, at this point, I feel okay. You know, I'm chirping along.
And what, I mean, if, at retirement for Social Security, you could retire in 3 years.
I could retire now.
And get Social Security, and then still work to make 30,000.
Right.
You know.
Retiring at 62 makes no sense.
No,
you
it
can
doesn't.
only make what $12,000 or $13,000, and then you're paying back your Social Security at the rate of $1.32 you receive.
Is that true?
It's true, and the amount of money you get monthly is about half what you'll get at 66. They make it very unattractive at 62.
Okay.
But for people who have a retirement plan,
Yeah.
it's a little extra. So some
Okay.
people, when they turn 62, will take
Got
that
it.
option because they don't intend to work. I intend to keep working and selling work as long as I can move, you know?
Right.
So none of it makes sense for me. Yes?
So, a couple of things have happened to Cynthia in the last 20 years.
Yeah. Let's talk about you.
So,
I'll
Cynthia, you have a couple of minutes to
just rush through it.
summarize, what would you say, the last 20 years or so. But please, go ahead.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll? I don't know, Richie.
Well, let's start with 1983. Did anything interesting happen in 83?
Oh, God, it's when I met him.
You guys have been together that long, huh?
What is-
Congratulations. Really.
I wouldn't say been together. I mean, it's, you know, how you qualify that term, being together.
She was out of town for a couple of years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Quite a few years. And when I met you, I had already left my husband.
Right, right. Maybe not quite, but you were ready to.
All right, it was kind of like
Yeah,
maybe-
you weren't happy. You weren't happy.
No, and actually the trigger that set me over the brink and made me realize how unhappy I was meeting Robbins.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That was a tempestuous
That
affair.
was I still know.
Yeah, I know. You
It's still tempestuous, apparently.
Well, some things never change.
And yeah, I mean it's one of those kind of just elemental relationships. It's really based on that chemistry.
Yeah.
That was powerful then, and it
Yeah.
kind of hangs on. And I guess it's like imprinting. Like
Right.
you still see each other as that person that was
Right.
23 years ago.
Well, chemistry is chemistry.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, then there was the whole living in lofts and living the artist's life, which was when I met you, and totally committed to it, and thinking that was going to be that's what I was going to
Your
do.
scenario, yeah.
And living the kind of life you had,
Mhm.
teaching a little bit here,
Mhm.
whatever you had to do to
Right.
maintain that
Right.
studio. And then when I met you, I had a loft down in Fort Point on A Street.
I went there once. We had Sunday lunch or something.
Yeah, and the guys, the Mission of Burma band,
Mm-hmm.
they were the guys, I was the last one in. They developed that floor at
Mhm.
215.
Mhm.
They needed one more person, it was me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was me and the Mission of Burma band
Mm-hmm.
who developed that floor on
A Street?
On A Street.
Yeah.
And you know, the pipes, I had,
Is that the building where they recently found the methamphetamine factory and the guy dead?
no, that was over on, I think it was like on Summer Street.
Oh, okay.
It was one of the other, more well-developed. Actually, yeah, it was on Summer Street. I read about that. Did you know that?
I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
It sounded.
There was a famous murder related to A Street.
There was?
A young woman
Was that during the time I was there?
cut in half.
Oh.
No.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's not A Street. That was Lansdowne Street.
Lansdowne Street.
Well, that's where she was last seen,
But
Right.
her body, part of her body was found in a dumpster, I think, maybe
Right by
down there.
the Fenway Studios.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Ugh. God, I don't know if I ever found all the part.
So you're on A Street and then you
Yeah.
go to Germany.
Spending time getting to know my sexuality a little bit better. Through various sundry acquaintances and painting and trying to be good to my child.
Mm-hmm.
And teaching at
Mhm.
the Art Institute.
Mhm.
Doing the BVAU gig, a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there,
Right,
all
right,
of that. And
right.
when I left my husband, I left him with the house, everything in it. I took my electric frying pan, which was crucial to
Mhm.
cook on.
Mm-hmm.
My clothes
Mhm.
and my art supplies.
That was it.
That was it. And we didn't get divorced. And he always thought I'd get over it, get
Mhm.
shame, come back home.
That's a jock for you.
Yeah, really. And yeah, geez, then what happened? It was right around then I was in the Boston Now show.
Right, I
At the
remember that.
RCA.
Right.
And for me, that was
It's a
like
biggie.
a biggie.
Yep.
Ralph Helmick. I
Yep,
don't know if you
sure,
know
I know.
Helmick.
Yep.
He's the only other. I mean, there are a couple other people. I forget who else was in that show.
That was the one time the ICA, that period with the Boston Now Show,
Yeah.
was the one time the ICA actually had any relationship to the Boston art scene that made any sense at all.
Yeah.
And they have since, never done it. As soon as David Ross was gone, they just sort
Yeah.
of retreated into their elitist,
Same
intellectual thing.
Yeah.
And now
I haven't been there in a gazillion years.
I have a lifelong membership because I gave them a piece of work for an auction, right?
Okay.
I walk by it all the time. I never go in.
Yeah, yeah.
What does that say?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I'm into contemporary art.
Yeah.
I follow it.
Yeah.
I just won't do it. It's just too boring.
Yeah.
Same old, and it insults me because there are people here in the city who are making work that is just as interesting and probably quite similar.
Oh,
And
never
they
shown.
never get shown.
Huh.
And this is the
That's-
Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah, really. I mean, some things
The
never
contempt
change.
of the established Boston artist institutions for Boston artists is a big reality that, you
And that's why the BVNU started.
I know.
And it was the thing we did at the MFA to hire a
Curator.
curator of contemporary art.
Well, my problem with the MFA is that I don't understand why they don't have a dedicated gallery that shows Boston artists.
Yeah, really.
I just don't, it does not make any sense
It doesn't make any
that they
sense.
don't have something like that.
But at least they still have a curator of contemporary art. Who is it?
Stover.
I don't even know who that is
Well,
anymore. I am so out
He's
of
a
it.
very,
Dithering?
no,
Dithering.
excitable. He gets flush.
Absolutely. I don't know if you're familiar
No,
with them.
I'm not.
I mean, they make Franz Klein look like, I don't know, diddly. I mean, they were so on the edge and so, they did such amazing things that combined performance and dealing with taboos in society and the most cutting edge group of artists I've ever experienced, really out there. And I thought, man, this is amazing. And this one guy, Otto, who was one of those talented people, had started this company. And by the 80s, it was well established, very rich.
Mm-hmm.
It was nothing like when he had lived there in the late 70s when they were wearing overalls and shaved heads and
Mhm.
gardening
Mhm.
and that kind of thing. And so throughout, when I met him in 83, we made our first trip together in 84, and we continually went back and forth. We would both go a couple times in the year.
Mhm.
We did go back and visit. And at some point, I felt that I had to move there. And they had, because of the AIDS epidemic, they closed like open enrollment. They weren't taking any new members. You couldn't come in. You just couldn't say, I want to join your company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was older then.
Mhm.
And because it's mostly they wanted young people,
Sure.
very active people.
Fresh meat.
Fresh meat, absolutely. And Otto did everything he could to discourage me, saying, you cow, you're so old, what makes you think anybody here would want you anyway? Of course I knew, well, it's all theater, and I played right into it, not a problem.
Mhm.
The thing that made me very excited about going there, though, was was right around in a year or two before I had been on the cover of Art and Magazine. We did a centerfold with me, and then the ICA show, and I took some of my work there for Otto to see.
Mm-hmm.
And he said,
He liked it.
He
Yep.
said, this is right.
Mm-hmm.
He even copied
Mm-hmm.
one of my paintings.
Mm-hmm.
She was the second best artist who ever lived there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Next to Otto?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so that, and he was unabashed about complimenting me on the harbor.
Mm-hmm.
Made all the other crapola, whatever. I knew it was theater, and he
Sure.
was testing it.
Right.
And I made it my goal. I was going to be the last person into this. They were going to let me
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, because I saw myself getting older, and how you can't I didn't want to live
Like this.
grubbing, and and I wanted to have young people around me and have children. I knew what it was like to try to raise a kid when you had, the two parents who just didn't get along, and oh my God, here was this great environment for
Yeah.
children, and
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of people.
So it was very attractive.
Oh, very attractive. So to make a long story short, one of our trips, through one of my pleas, Anna said, okay, we'll let you in.
Gomera, 1988.
It was Gomera, 1981. Gomera. They had bought about a third of one of the Tenerife Islands, the Canary Islands.
Uh-huh.
Gomera is a little round pie-shaped island.
Mhm.
The commune had bought a section of it,
A slice.
a slice of the pie, that they developed as a kind of artist retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And an organic, they had banana plantation stuff there, and they would have important European artists come to
Mm-hmm.
wig out.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there. We were on Gomera when Anna said, "Okay, I've had enough of you. I can't take it anymore. You can come.
Your relentlessness.
You're relentless. I give up. Yes, you can go." And it was very political because there were a lot of people in there. It was like, we don't want her.
Yeah.
We don't want this person. But so I was committed to that and came home planning that. And at that point, we had bought this. I bought 2 houses in Dorchester. One, my husband finally we got divorced. And the house we lived in was sold, was in Newton, amazing Victorian Newton, it was sold. And I got half. He was so kind. I mean, he gave me half.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I didn't ask for anything, and he gave me half. And I took that money and bought a little house in Dorchester.
85.
In 85.
Late 85.
Bought it for $70,000 and sold it, 2 years later, 3 years later?
2 years.
2 years later for $140. It was one of those real estate cycles.
Right.
Took that money, invested in a huge Victorian in Dorchester where he and I, were going to start our own commune.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work, and that was another reason why I wanted to go to Austin. So it was all during this period. All this stuff was going on. So I come back, put the house on the market. It was in my name because it was my money, but in any case, put that house on the market. By then, it was bad times in real estate. And then a tragedy happened. My daughter was in a severe, she was running track. I think she had a dad's genes. My husband.
Right.
And she was going to Snowden International School, Boston Public School. We moved her out of Newton. I moved her out of Newton. She didn't move like Newton anyway. And she was at Snowden. She was like the only white kid on the girls' track team. And they were running a race at the Armory, which is now that humongous group of buildings in BU. It was the Armory on Conrad.
Right, I remember the Armory.
Yeah, after the meet, she asked her teacher if she could go home on the T, because we lived in Dorchester, instead of taking the school bus.
Mm-hmm.
He said, okay. She ran across Ave to catch the T, was hit by a hit-and-run driver. Her head hit the windshield, then her head hit the curb. She was unconscious, took her to the hospital. They called me at work. I ran to, it was St. E's. She was unconscious. Her trachea was there. Everybody, they had no idea. Brain injury. Didn't know if she was going to come out. She was in a coma.
4 days.
4 days in a coma. We sat by her. And she was a senior. She was going to graduate that year. And she had been accepted, early acceptance to BU. I figured she gets into college, I can go off and move to this commune, and you know,
Mhm.
she's pretty much set and we can communicate, she
Mhm.
can come visit, and it would all work out. But now there's wrench in all of this.
Right, this is what, 1980?
It was
87. It was
87.
December of 87 was
Of
the
87
accident.
when this event
There was a year of recovery.
Yeah, she came to, she recognized me, she didn't recognize her father, because I was the only person she recognized. She spoke an odd language that was like poetry. That she would say things like, the smell of perfume in the room is like, blah, blah, blah. Just go like stream of consciousness
Mhm.
language. He wrote a lot of it down.
notes.
And she had trouble walking, her balance. She had a severe eye injury instead of her head. She went to, she spent 6 months at Spalding Rehab.
Great place.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna get rehab, that's the place.
Yeah. When they released her from Spalding, they said she had the intellect of about a 6-year-old.
Had there been actual brain damage?
They still weren't, they knew that, but they said these things are so, back then,
Mhm.
they know a lot more, it was so iffy, they couldn't say. They knew, the eye had been damaged, it was a muscle, and it was too dangerous to try to repair it. They recommended doing nothing. They said the eye would adjust,
Mm-hmm.
compensate for what was the problem. So that put off my plans and her plans, and she worked through it, and by the following year, she had come around. I mean, we remember that moment in time. She couldn't tell time. She didn't know what the time was when she
Mhm.
came home. And it was, 5, 6 years old. And we remember the day when she realized in the morning, she couldn't tell time, didn't know what it was, and by the afternoon, she could tell.
It had sort of popped back.
Right. So
Some of these things
clicking.
came and went,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And again, to make a very long story short, by the end of the year, she was back in school. She had she graduated from high school a year late.
spring of 89.
Mhm.
Had retaken the entrance exams to BU and been re-accepted.
Mhm.
So her brain was really, she struggled. She had to work like a dog, but she got it.
She was young enough, and there was whatever damage there was wasn't permanent.
It wasn't
She could
permanent.
re-engineer her circuitry.
Yeah, she saw double a lot.
Yeah.
She would reach for an object,
Mhm.
Mm.
and it was really here and not
Miscalculate.
Mhm.
where things were.
Mhm.
And to read, she had to go like this. I
Mhm.
mean, she's an amazing kid. Just amazing kid. So, but I was so driven, people would think me cruel. I gave her the option of coming with me, and
Mhm.
she wanted to stay here, and I
Mhm.
wanted to go.
Mhm.
And I moved into the convent.
So in 88, 89?
Yeah.
June 89, beginning of June 89. The big revolution came, Tiananmen Square came a couple days after you were
After
in Friedrichshof, yeah.
Yeah. And it was an amazing year. I worked very closely with Otto, with the head guru guy.
Mhm.
The experience itself is, it would take another whole, days to tell you about it. And
But here, I can tell you what happened after she passed the quarantine. okay.
Yeah, we had to have.
She have to go through a quarantine, okay?
Sexual quarantine meaning no sex.
Meaning
Right, no
no
sex.
sex with anybody, and
About doing the theater.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but they live together communally?
He has interns. No, it's his thing. He
Okay.
runs it.
Okay, he's the guru
He's
of
in
Red.
total control.
Yeah, yeah.
And his total control is benign, but authoritarian.
Yeah, Anna was benign but authoritarian. Would you say that? Or would you? qualify?
Sure, there were elements of both of those things,
Yeah.
but more than that, it was self-directed from within each individual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a structure, and
See, there was Friedrichshof was constantly undergoing changes,
Yeah.
often initiated not necessarily by the people at the top.
Yeah. It was very hierarchical.
Yeah.
But the hierarchy was explicit. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Everybody had a number. And those
well,
were
it's
the
interesting.
things.
Germans are interesting on this whole subject of anarchy and control. It's
Yeah.
an interesting culture that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so continue.
Yeah.
You were there as of 88, 89.
Right.
And you stayed till.
Well, what happened was, after I had been living there a year, and worked very closely with Otto as an artist in the studio. It was more like his, I did silk screen preparation, experimented with paint, chemistry, and all kinds of stuff. And I was sort of in his inner circle, which was very resented by a lot of the people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They
So,
resented,
new kid on the block.
yeah, and the fact that I was so close to him so fast.
Mm-hmm.
But-
Was there an anti-American thread to that?
No.
No.
No, I think it would have been anybody.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just asking.
Yeah, there were only 3 other Americans in the group. There were about 700 in the whole
Oh, wow.
group when
That's a
I
big
was
group.
there.
That's a big group.
Because they had satellite groups in Dusseldorf, Munich, Zurich, Paris. There were satellite groups that helped to also, they were in insurance businesses and real estate financing mechanisms, so they were very business savvy. So generated the money. Everybody lived very well. The physical environment was lovely.
Shit.
Yeah, not living.
Sign me up.
Yeah, exactly. Not living
Although
grubby.
I couldn't. I am absolutely a loner. Yeah, group living would
Well,
not.
see,
I'd be good.
Yeah.
But I couldn't endure it.
See, I used to think that. But I always said that about myself. When I met him, that's what I said.
She would always send me home.
Yeah.
I want to be.
Because it was so stimulating. But then there were things that I was not privy to, and there were a lot of young girls, teenagers, and Otto was having sex with them, and although a lot of the top politicians in Vienna used to come out to visit the commune all the time. There was some disgruntled former communards who took it upon themselves to bring it down, and they had kind of gone full circle to being very moralist, and they garnered the support and the authorities and telling inside secrets, and basically the place was raided.
Oh God, for drugs?
No,
No, for what?
for the sexuality with minors.
Ah, that'll do it.
And
That'll do
so I panicked. And although it became, there was this raid one night, and then there was a lull because there were all of the legal wheels were put in motion.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I had to do something I felt I couldn't, by then I was fluent in German. I had all these connections with the Austrian, European art world.
Mm-hmm.
And
When did you do the show in Munich? What year was that? I have the calendar.
it was like 90,
91, 92.
91.
Sort of in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, it's when I decided, when I'd only been in the commune a year, I started the business Artworks.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had backers and I had friends in the commune that were involved in the art world who introduced me to a lot of people in the art world in Vienna and Munich particularly. And a dear friend, a Dutch guy, helped me tremendously. And I put together a newsletter, developed the concept for the company, And the business structure of the commune was, there were a lot of people working to save the whole material wealth and everything else and separate themselves from Otto's dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
And so I developed this concept for an art consulting company, which was relatively unknown in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They sold through galleries, art consulting, and they bought it. And they said, okay, we'll take you. I was living in the main commune in Friedrichshafen, which was outside of Vienna. And I opted to go to Munich with a bunch of people. And they said, we'll take you there.
Mm-hmm.
This company, it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
We'll give you a little office in our office building,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see if you can launch it there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I contacted a lot of people and built a portfolio. And I had Munich artists and Boston artists.
Mm-hmm.
And did this artworks in the workplace thing, and it was relatively successful.
Mm-hmm.
I sold some work and did some great things. I had 2 corporate sponsors that bought into this thing. I did artworks in the workplace, which was a big deal. Worked so well. Where I'd come in with my portfolio, the corporation would often be like in an industrial park or building a new building, and they needed art. And they pay me a consulting fee. And I do a presentation to all of their employees. Could be from the lowest, secretary all the way up to the president, during lunch or after work, of maybe half a dozen artists. And I tell them about the work. I do a little Q&A, do a slideshow. And at the end of the meeting, they would vote on their maybe 2 favorites. And then I would come in with those 2 selected artists after, and we'd hang the whole place. And the company would sponsor an opening. They usually invited local politicians because they used the families of the employees, the families of the artists. We'd have a big party, everybody. And all of the employees felt attached to the work because they
selected. It's sort of like the Art Connection.
Yeah.
The Art Connection.
And also part of the contract was the company had to buy, at the end of the exhibition, 1 work from each of the participating artists for their permanent collection. And then they could opt over after 6 months. I would do the whole thing again. Or it could be a one-time thing. Or, so I had 2 corporations that hired me for ongoing contracts that kept me, paid my rent, paid my, Then after the Berlin Wall came down, and then the economy started to crash, and things got worse and worse, and finally my 2 main corporate clients canceled out. And I had to come back. I could not. There's no way I could get a job again. And I was still in close contact with him.
So
that was 92, 93.
June 93.
June 93. When I pitched the artworks in the workplace concept to Fidelity, to Ned Johnson, who was involved in art. Just in a letter proposal, reaching in on that. He was interested. He invited me in to meet with a certain corporate group of his. And I also got an interview for the job I have now in the film company. I had 3 interviews lined up. And when I had those 3 interviews lined up, I packed up my office in Munich, my clothes in a suitcase, said goodbye to all my friends.
And came back.
Came back, he picked me up at the airport. That's all I had, a suitcase.
And no regrets.
Well, it was that whole period. My whole life was so friggin' busy. The survival thing, the pleasure thing, the relationships. It was so intense. No time for regrets. How do you regret when you're like, oh my God, where am I going next? Holy shit. No, there were no regrets. I didn't regret anything. And I had all these friends, great friends. And I went to Bangkok. That was another thing. But one of my dear friends was an avid kite maker, art kite. He built these incredible structures that got invited to the big fine art thing in Bangkok and all
Mhm,
things. You know,
mhm.
I went to Bangkok for a couple of weeks, freebie,
Yeah.
you know, from Munich, and it's just part of the whole thing. And then, yeah, so I came back and I got interviewed for these jobs. I was living in this sleazebag apartment that Wacko here was getting evicted from, and that pissed me off totally. How could he just not, get his act together? And I come back, and the damn apartment he's getting in. I mean, what the hell is that? So I left him. I said, I'm not having anyone to do with him. He's such a ne'er-do-well. I can't stand it. And
Hi, Richard.
and I was being interviewed for these jobs, and I had to get one of them, and I was moving out of his place looking for another apartment. I had no money. I had to leave
That's humiliating.
I needed
Yeah.
You know, I had like 1,400, but they needed like 3 months.
Right.
First, last from security, I needed 7 months. I asked my mother. Oh my God, she said, "You made your bed. You have to lay in it."
Well,
Oh, I hated them for that.
what?
I had my best suit, my only suit,
Mhm.
and went to this meeting in the Fidelity offices right here in Boston, top floor. Ned was there, and I pitched them. There were like 4 or 5 people around the conference table, and they said, this is very interesting. We really like it. And I told them what I wanted for money and how I'd have to be set up. And but they didn't give me anything, of course, right at that time. They just expressed increased interest. And I had these other interviews at this film company. And on the same day that they offered me the executive director of the film company, I get a call from Fidelity. And they're not going to finance my thing, but they had this venture. They were starting these galleries called
Wentworth Galleries.
Wentworth Galleries. They were like the McDonaldization of original art. They had all original art, but it was all over the sofa-sized paintings. But they had this deal where they would offer to have their consultants or gallery directors go to your home with a truck filled with art.
Oh dear.
And the consultant would hang your home, and then you could opt to buy into it the way it was or reject some of it, a little bit similar to what I was doing, but not really. And they wanted me to manage one of their galleries, and the problem was it was in Miami. I would have to agree to move to Miami, with the caveat that if I could really make a go of that gallery in the first year, they'd finance my scheme, which wasn't bad.
Yeah, not bad. 2 of his kids own works of art. Abby Johnson owns a painting.
Yeah, cool.
But I've never sold anything.
Yeah.
But I have one I'm trying to sell.
Ah, good.
He's been very instrumental in the PBS Essex Museum on the Salem. I don't know if you're aware.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It is
I love
great,
it.
and
I love
it was
it.
basically his decision that it not be moved to Boston.
Great idea.
Because at one point there was discussion that, well, Salem, nothing's happening here. Let's
Yeah.
move it to Blue Point Channel and put it in one of those loft buildings.
Oh, big mistake.
Big mistake. And it was basically him and his money and his opposition to that kept the museum in Salem.
That's great.
And because I have a kind of a biographical identification with Salem and with that museum, I always liked that idea.
Yeah.
So I have a painting of a fireflower that sits outside the park, that after they reopened it with the more softy atrium, people were putting their entry stickers all over the fireflower and kind of bedizening the fire plug with confetti.
Yeah.
And I did a painting of that fire plug just in my last show. And we're trying to sell it to the PBS exhibit.
Oh, cool.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
Excellent.
They should buy it. They actually should
That
buy it.
Absolutely.
Because one thing, they stopped using those stickers because people were putting them all over objects on the street.
Yeah. That's a little bit of history
It's a historical moment.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So that's how you came to take the executive directorship of the film thing.
Yeah, it was a torturous moment in my life. I would say
that's
that
a complete
was
change of venues.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, the film world is another world.
Yeah, I mean, I knew nothing. I lied my way into the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lied.
No, you didn't.
I did.
She did not.
I did.
You should
lie.
have seen the other two people, the other two final applicants.
Uh-huh.
Well, they were more academic. They were academics. I mean, they needed help. They were teetering on the brink of collapse.
Is this a Cambridge company?
It's Watertown.
What's it called?
Documentary Educational Resources, DER.
Mm-hmm.
What intrigued me is that they had this archive of incredibly valuable material
Mm-hmm.
that I had actually seen. Otto,
Mm-hmm.
my guru guy, had actually shown some of the films as part of his interest,
Mm-hmm.
the wide-ranging interest, that were actually part of this company's archive.
Mm-hmm.
A valuable tribal culture, at the pivotal moment
Mm-hmm.
of first contact and change.
They have a lot of Yanomami films?
Yeah, all of them.
All of
we
them,
we
yeah.
we own that entire group of Yanomami and Kung Bushman, First Contact.
Mhm.
Probably the most important film record in all of anthropology.
The
was
Ted
part
Ted
of.
Kroger films of the Quite Kudos?
We have those. We have some of those too.
I taught a course, I taught everything I did.
Oh wow.
And I taught a course called Art and Anthropology at one point.
Oh my
I
God.
got it-
But you don't teach it anymore.
No, I got out of academic teaching because,
Yeah.
for one thing, my classes kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Because you were good.
I was good, and you didn't get paid anymore for teaching 30 students as opposed to 15, and I was getting blue book exams.
Oh God, the workload.
And no money. No
Yeah,
money,
really.
So, frankly, I came to the conclusion that it behooved me, rather than getting $3,600 to teach a 3-hour academic course, which required 8 hours of outside work and preparation.
Right.
I was much better off to teach a 6-hour studio and get $5,600 and then show
Yeah,
up
you
and do
just
it.
show up, right.
Really?
You and the model or whatever.
Well, that's how people do it. I'm
Yeah.
better than that.
Yeah.
But studio teaching is very easy. I mean, it
Yeah.
can be very easy.
Yeah.
So I got out of academics completely, but I think I taught that course 3 years every other year. And then I also taught a course called Art and War, which was probably my most successful course that I did.
Oh,
Which was a great course. It was
what year was that?
well, it was another over a 7-year period, so every other year. And in the late 90s into 2003.
Oh,
That's what I
wow.
taught.
What
And
a great idea for a course. Great.
and it was what's the word? Transdisciplinary, multimedia approach to the subject.
Right.
So we started with the Iliad. We didn't read the whole thing. We read one book of the Iliad, but that was the beginning literary component that got them into the whole Greek Pantheon and all this stuff, which comes up in the book.
Yeah.
And then I did a little bit with Napoleonic painting, French painting, military painting.
David and all
Right,
that.
and then we went to Goya and the disasters of war.
Right.
And then we went to the Civil War and the Walt Whitman Civil War poems and Red Badge of Courage. And we went to World War I and we read All Quiet on the Western Front and the Rupert Brooke poems. And then we went to, I didn't do anything with World War II. Went to the last unit was on Maya Lin's Vietnam War. So it was a bunch of very specific encounters with a broad range of things that had been involved in, that were art about war.
Yeah.
And I had a kind of an overview of this, that there were 4 kinds of art made about war.
Yeah.
Memorials, glorifications,
Yeah.
propaganda and protest. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and I screened Lenny Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
ultimate propaganda.
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. And,
Oh, what a
and
great course.
It was great. It really was
Yeah.
great. And now somebody's trying to teach it, but the master's gone.
Yeah.
Ken has left the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cynthia, could you close out with your family?
Oh, yes. Well, now I'm a grandmother.
Erica has kids,
Erica has two,
too.
and it's like this other chapter. You
Yeah,
know, the
well,
next chapter.
Well, grandparentness is the coolest.
It is the absolute. Who would have guessed?
I never would have guessed the grandparent that she's become.
I have all of the cliches that you want to dredge up about grandmothers.
Over the top.
It applies here. I can't go into any shop without thinking, oh, I can get that for Adia, or
Right.
you know, oh man, I'm an obsessive buyer
Right.
of all kinds of stuff, and I want to be the one that buys everything for them.
Right. I
And
understand.
I'm very competitive with the other grandmother. There's
Yeah.
another grandmother involved, and I want her
When
to
you get
die.
when you get two of them on the same kid, it's really bad.
Well, this is the thing. She has 7 kids. I have 1.
She should understand and let
Yes.
you have fair.
Yeah, I
Somebody
consider
proportion.
those grandchildren mine.
Yeah.
She can keep her hands off because she's got all these others out
Let
there.
me spoil the kid.
Yeah, and she's pretty good about that. She hardly shows up, which it just is fine by me.
Well, I'm a granduncle 4 times. I have 4 nephews and a niece. 2 of my nephews are married and have kids. They each have 2 kids. And one of them has fraternal twins who are now 6 years old.
Oh, what a
Who
guy.
are just, I mean, that's a whole other trip. So
Yeah.
I get it from a big remove. I don't have not a real biological connection
Yeah.
to them, but it's quite wonderful. I love it to pieces.
Yeah. But that's the thing, you know, here's Erica, and what Erica's life story is really, it's a novel unto itself.
Really?
What that kid did after the accident.
It includes 4 years in the military, for example.
Oh my God. In the Air Force?
Navy.
Navy.
She moved with me ultimately to Europe. She went to art school for a couple of months.
At BU?
And no, it was through, where the heck was she enrolled? I forget where she was enrolled. Yeah, maybe it was while she was at BU, she signed up for a, no, that wasn't it. How did she
It
get
was in
into-
Europe.
Huh?
She went to a cooking thing, first of all, in, what was it, Portland?
Portland, Maine. Oh yeah, she went to a culinary arts school and became a chef.
And then she wanted to study cooking in Italy and then got into the art thing. And then the theater thing.
Did you ever see this German film called Mostly Martha? About a high-end chef, female, yes please, female chef in, I believe it probably was Rotterdam, who owns a very, pristine, severe new restaurant. And her
Yeah.
sister's daughter. What's
She
Erica
was
doing now?
amazing. Well, now there was a whole bunch of stuff. There was the Navy for 4 years. But before the Navy, she was in the theater in Munich, living with me in Munich. We lived together in a room if we had a wall here, the size of that area. We lived in a room together. We slept in the same bed.
Mm-hmm.
Mother and daughter. Can you imagine it? 19, however old she was. And then she got involved with beautiful. She was beautiful. And was more beautiful then. She met this kind of avant-garde theater guy in Munich, and he took her in, and she joined the theater group, and they did an English version of The Little Prince.
Mm.
And she played the Little Prince.
Oh my God. Well,
And then they went off to Greece to do it in some kind of touristy place in Greece. I stayed in Munich, and she was sexually attacked when they were there
Oh God.
by some.
On the islands? In the islands?
It was on Crete.
Yeah.
And she called me desperate, and I was making plans to try to find a flight to Crete to get her out of there. The guy threatened her with a gun. Said if you, tell.
I've been there twice now. North of Athens, though.
So that was a horrible panic situation. But her half-brother, my husband's kid by former marriage, is a career military guy, Air Force. And Erica was afraid to go to the local police because she knew it was all corrupt, and she'd probably get taken advantage of as well by the police. An American girl,
Right.
dumb, naive, and
As
American
one of my
girl.
students said, I'm a girl, so it's my fault.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a military base on Crete. And she took a bus there and banged on the gates basically and said, "Let me in, let me in." And there was the chaplain on the base let her in and she talked to him, and she said, "I have a brother who's in the military, he's Air Force," and they checked out the story and contacted him. He was stationed in the U.S. at the time, and they flew her out of Crete on a military plane. And he picked her up at the base, and she took her to the hospital and had her checked out. And luckily, she wasn't pregnant and didn't get any kind of bad stuff. And but she had a recovery period from all of that.
It's a trauma.
And it was after that she went to the culinary arts school. In Maine, settled in Portland.
It's a cool city.
Yeah. And I went to visit her a couple times there, and it was a very rocky period for us in our relationship. And she blamed me for everything, for leaving her dad, for everything, leading this wacky wild life. Even though I loved her absolutely, I wanted her with me in all of these jobs, whether it was, but of course she had to opt for what she wanted to do, and I tried to support that. And I always believe that, you just love them, you just unequivocally love them, and whenever they want to come back, you open your arms and open the door, and if you're just emotionally honest with your kids, they'll come around somehow.
Eventually. Hopefully before you die.
Yeah, hopefully before you die, exactly. And it was at some point, after the cooking school thing, where I got a call and she said, "Mom, I joined the Navy."
I'm kind of thrown by that.
It was really good. And I think seeing her brother and the kind of regimentation that she had never had in her life, the orderliness, the path you take where you know what the end is, you know what your expectations are of you. You're part of a group, you're supported, you have security, you do all that. So she signed up and she entered basic training with 14 other girls. At the end of basic, 2 survived, she and another girl. And she tested out for some higher kind of work and training, and they took her into Navy intelligence.
She aced the physical part.
Yeah, she aced the physical part. And they're right about that accident. They didn't find out. She faked, didn't say a thing about any kind of injury in her past. And they tested her for whatever. She did unbelievable stuff at this boot camp thing. Oh my God, the climbing, the shimmying under the barbed wire, whatever they do,
Running.
God, the run.
Her father was an Olympian, so she got a dose
all
of that.
All those genes, my God, it was amazing. And so that she went into Navy intelligence, and they shipped her off to Japan to a listening post, some undisclosed location. and she was at first gonna make the military a career.
Mm-hmm.
Until she started the sexual harassment crap all started with the superiors.
Uh-huh.
And the kind of thing she had to do to document what they did to her,
Mm-hmm.
or attempted to do, and how she resisted,
Mm-hmm.
and then was given, like the crappiest duty of all, and
Right.
she applied for transfer, because there was one particular captain that was making her life miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Married guy.
Mm-hmm.
So she applied for a transfer, and they shipped her off to Korea. And she was doing the same thing. Her specialty was looking at satellite photographs of primarily the Russians, and what they were doing with their nuclear waste,
Uh-huh.
where it was going, how they were transporting it.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things she told me about is they were there in their obscure little spot, and the Russians would beach their old rusted nuclear-powered ships on the Korean
Submarines.
shore, the submarines, and they'd run them over to Korea, beach them there, and leave them as a way of getting
Solution.
Yeah, and this is the kind of stuff Erica was seeing and watching. And I mean, she was gorgeous. I mean, she was really just, I have photographs of her running, in Korea. I mean, this blonde hair and this body that you lean and you can die for. And she has very classic features,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful bone
I wonder where
structure.
she gets it.
From her dad.
Well, no.
From her dad.
So
But-
she spent a year on an island off.
Oh yeah, she opts to do their Colorado State's Year Abroad program
Uh-huh.
in French,
Uh-huh.
escaping the sugar daddy.
Uh-huh.
But she meets another sugar daddy.
Well, anyway, she goes to Réunion Island, which is off the coast of Madagascar, for
Mhm.
a year of intensive French
Mhm.
study, and she meets another guy, a French Canadian.
Pierre Marc.
Pierre Marc, a computer genius, who's there also studying in Henri. And at the end of their year together there, or the end of their school year there, they're kind of a couple then, they opt to backpack across Madagascar before they come home.
Mm-hmm.
And they go off to Madagascar and then come back to Colorado. In the meantime, they stop off at our place in Cambridge, and we meet Pierre Marc. And we know he's not.
Well,
We know he's not the guy.
he's a little torn because he has got family and money.
Yeah. And he's,
And she likes that.
she likes that. She's a very class.
But you know he's
girl.
not right because
Well, yeah.
because
Some people make a decision like that and some don't. But it turns out that once they're back in Montreal, she meets somebody else.
Yeah, but that is, in any case, they're going to live together. She graduates. She gets her college degree finally, French major, and she's with this new sugar daddy. This new sugar daddy, the old sugar daddy, when he finds out,
he must have been
he's
furious.
friggin' livid.
Of course he is.
He comes in, of course, puts the condo up for sale.
Throws her stuff
Out on the
street.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was like that.
Of course. What else was he going to do?
Changes the locks, She scruffs up what little she has.
Burns cigarette holes in all the photographs he has of her.
Absolutely, absolutely. And she hightails it off to Montreal with this new guy, with her degree in hand. And they get an apartment together, but they're not happy. She knows she's not